Blessings in Jesus' name. So in this video I'm going to be exposing a treasonous terminology now been implemented through legislature in Ireland. It's a conspiratorial treason that has been effectively exacted through the High Court of Ireland, through the seat of Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan, through the seat of President Michael D. Higgins, and through the seats of 3 Court of Appeal judges in Irish courts. Actually, the same court hearing, 3 judges were sitting and presiding. So basically what has come to pass is there's a terminology in legislature which states that something can be in legislature as merely presumptively constitutional, which is saying that we don't have evidence as to whether it is constitutional or not, which of course is a treason. It's a blatant lie. We're not stupid. You know, the Constitution means the written law. That's the meaning of the term. So, presumptively means lacking evidence to confirm something or deny it. Well, do we have evidence to confirm or deny whether something is a corollary of the written law? Well, yeah, it's written. That's evidence. Something's written down. It can't be denied. It's in black and white on paper. So to say that we don't have evidence is a lie. But it's also a treason, because it denies the Constitution as being evidence. Do you see the point I'm making? The term presumptively says we're lacking evidence to confirm or deny, so we're making an assumption. We're presuming. The word assumption and presumption are interchangeable terms. They both mean in this context lacking evidence to confirm or deny something. So that's like saying the Constitution is the written law, which is the evidence as to what the law is in Ireland. It is the written evidence. So when you say we don't have evidence to deny or confirm the evidence, you're effectively abandoning reason. The Constitution itself is the evidence. So to say that something can be presumptively constitutional is a barefaced lie. It simply can't. It can't be both evidenced and without evidence at the same time. So presumptively constitutional is a lie. The term itself couldn't be constitutional, obviously, because it doesn't promote the Constitution. It promotes an idea that there's a lack of evidence as to what the Constitution is or isn't, such that we could confirm or deny whether a legislature is constitutional or isn't. We're never lacking that evidence, because it's written down. So nothing is presumptively constitutional. It either is constitutional or it isn't. It can't be presumptively constitutional, because we're not lacking evidence as to whether it's constitutional or not. So the term itself is a moron. It's a headless chicken. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't know where it's going. It is a self-refuting term. We don't have evidence about the evidence. There's no evidence evidenced. There's evidence. Isn't evidence. It's really that silly. This evidence isn't evidence. The thing we use as evidence isn't evidenced. It simply doesn't work. If you're saying no, that's not what we mean. We're saying we haven't confirmed or denied yet whether it's constitutional, but you have to sort of assume it is in the meantime. No, doesn't work like that. It either is or it isn't constitutional, and you should never be encouraging the perpetuation or the continuance of something that isn't constitutional. The term presumptively constitutional is treason. It's treason. And they're openly doing it. And they say, yeah, we'll check whether that's constitutional or not. And then they failed to do it in the High Court under Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan in 2022. Two sections of the Criminal Justice Act 2006, 115 and 117, were to be tested by her, and she said, "No, I didn't do that. I'll do that. I didn't do it." So she started the court case, went about testing it, brought a barrister together with the solicitor, with the state solicitor, the state barrister, everybody together. And it took them years to prepare, and then just said, "Oh, by the way," mid-case. And I only found out when the ruling was already given and up on the website, when they're using my name. Up on the courts.ie website was a ruling before I got it. We abandoned that test, by the way. What? You're not allowed to abandon it. It's your job to remove ambiguity as to what in legislature is constitutional and what isn't. In fact, it's the Supreme Court's role to ensure that nothing gets into legislature that is unconstitutional at the point of the bill being considered for enactment, which is the role of the President. So now he's roped in. So now the President of Ireland, they're telling him he can test it or not at the point of enactment. That he doesn't have to ratify or confirm as to whether the bill is constitutional prior to enacting it. Sure, that's treason. Of course he does. Unless they're claiming, of course, the President of Ireland can promote unconstitutional writings. But that goes against his primary objective, which is to uphold the Constitution, along with the High Court, the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. That's their primary objective. Uphold the law, the rights of the people, and maintain them for the common good. That's their role. It's fundamental. And now they're saying we're not going to do that. And it's okay that we're not doing that because somebody legislated it. Who legislated that? Who could possibly have legislated something as brainless as that? That's mindless. That's the headless chicken. Doesn't know where it's going. But they're not stupid. Even though the behaviour and what they're doing is foolish, they're not stupid because they know that their primary role is to uphold the Constitution. That's why they write these gammy terms in the legislature, to give you the illusion that they're not breaking the law and committing treason. But the very term presumptively constitutional is treason, because there's nothing presumptively constitutional. That should never be a position or part of the ruling of a court. To say, you better obey this thing we don't know is the law or not. You better obey this thing we haven't checked is the law. Well, hang on a second. In law, ignorance is no excuse. So effectively, you could be telling me to obey something that fights against my constitution, therefore inciting me to crime, encouraging me to remain in the degree of ignorance required for me to obey this. And anyway, even if I do know better, and I know the Constitution would expose this legislature as unconstitutional, you're telling me under threat of imprisonment to obey something as constitutional that you yourself have admitted you haven't bothered to remove the ambiguity surrounding it as constitutional or unconstitutional. That's serious crime. That's treason. That is a mobilised, militarised attack against Ireland through the seat of President, Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan as the High Court judge, Michael D. Higgins as President, and the 3 Court of Appeal judges, who I can find out the names of, who actually were tasked with revisiting the constitutionality of sections 115 and 117 and ruled these are presumptively constitutional. So they failed to test it again. 2 courts, very high ranking, High Court and the Court of Appeal, which was called together to test, revisit and retest, and didn't, and said presume it constitutional, that'll be all. So the Court of Appeal in Ireland encouraging obedience of things that may not be constitutional. That's what they're claiming. I know they're unconstitutional, but you're telling me to obey them anyway? Do I know better than you? No, you're paid to know better than me, or at least as well as me. So why would you ever be inciting me to ignorance? That's criminal. And in your ignorance, do what we tell you, or you might go to jail. But you're asking me to obey something on a premise that is treasonous. Presumptively constitutional says that we don't have evidence as to what is or what isn't constitutional. Therefore, we have to assume, in the lack of evidence, that it is lawful, what you're now telling me I must do or go to jail. So that's a very serious position for the government to hold. It's a treasonous one. So now the term presumptively constitutional, which is a refutation of itself, because the Constitution is the evidence as to what's lawful and what isn't, therefore nothing can be claimed as lacking evidence as to whether it's constitutional or not, because the Constitution is that evidence. Do you see how that's a moron? It's an oxymoron or a headless chicken. It's a self-refuting statement. So they're through self-refuting terminologies asking us to, under threat of imprisonment, obey things that we otherwise know are unconstitutional. That's an occupancy. It is a very serious militarised treason and attack on the people of Ireland through the seat of President Michael D. Higgins, Miss Justice Siobhan Phelan of the High Court, and the 3 Court of Appeal judges who used the term presumptively constitutional in their court, in the Court of Ireland. Treason.